allies, we did it. We moved in, and we are in the studio now. We have not only our big premiere that happened, but we now have several episodes from several shows. Spoiler Mode's now in that space, Frame Trap's now in that space, Huber Syndrome, and you'll be seeing more. I've yet to cut the latest episode of Trailer Jones. So we had a couple of carryovers, some things that kind of blurred the lines between being in the garage and being in the studio. From this point on, everything you see from Easy Allies will be in the studio. So thank you so much for helping us make this happen and for helping us realize this incredible goal. And I hope you like the space. I know a lot of you have a lot of questions. I'm going to be getting to those questions as soon as I possibly can. So along with the prior episodes of Cup of Jones for the last couple weeks, you can leave questions on this episode. And I'm planning to do a live episode next week. I'm not 100% sure when I'm going to pull that off because it's likely just going to be on my laptop camera, on my Mac laptop here in a very empty and disorganized garage because all of our focus has been on the studio. But I wanted to not only give you an episode of Cup of Jones this week, but show you the remainder of footage and pictures that I've collected over this process. And because there isn't necessarily a narrative that'll take you all the way through it, I'm recording voiceover to provide some context for the stuff that you are about to see. So here is the Easy Allies podcast, and I want to point out a couple of things that we already know that we want to change about our main stage. Obviously, all of the spaces, all of the rooms that we have in the new studio are very exciting and are going to be improved over time. But the streaming stage, we have the two studio stages, Studio 1 and 2, our main stage and our streaming stage. The streaming stage actually came out really, really well, considering it was mostly DIY, and it sounds a lot better, actually, than our main studio stage. And so I wanted to point out a couple of things that we're going to be doing to the studio stage to get ahead of maybe some concerns or questions that you have. First of all, I don't know if you can tell during the podcast, but the LED strip on the top right of the frame keeps going out. We're not exactly sure what that is. We've had the team from Go Button have plans to come in, and they're going to be fixing that or hopefully addressing the issue. The room is also very echoey. We did a lot of soundproofing, so we did a lot of elimination of sounds coming in from outside sources. We're trying to eliminate the sound coming from the street. There's noises coming from the stores, the various places of business that are below us in this building, and depending on what hour of the day it is, they can make quite a bit of noise, and so we wanted to block as much of the noise coming up from the floor as possible and the noise coming from outside as possible. And then when we got in there and started recording, we realized that there's not a lot of sound absorbing material. There's not the noise is still kind of bouncing around the room a little bit, and so we're going to be making improvements not only to the room itself, but down the road we have our eyes on some very nice fancy mics that we would like to get that is an investment that we will make in the future, that we might possibly still have money for. We just wanted to hold off as much money as we possibly could in case there were equipment that needed to be replaced, stuff that needed to be fixed, maybe issues that could possibly arise from building all of this stuff and doing construction. And also just the colors for each show we're going to be experimenting with, and so you might see the frame move around, you might see colors change from one show to another, and so all of that is just us experimenting. Of course, we would love your feedback, but we also have lots of opinions about what we want to see, and so over the next weeks and months there will be slow changes coming to each of the shows. But for our first week in the new studio, we hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoy these next couple chapters of various shots, pictures, and videos that I have taken over the last couple weeks as we have moved in to this wonderful studio. These pictures that you're looking at now are from the first time that Ian and I visited the space. These are the very first photographs that I ever took of the space. At this time, we were looking at lots of different properties. And so when I took these photographs, they were very similar to, tons of other photographs that I took of a lot of other places. But Ian and I definitely fell in love with this place right away. When we first walked out, we were like, could be noisy. There's a lot of construction that we got to do. There were some places that we saw that were kind of off the beaten path, and so they weren't, we're on next to two very busy streets, and so there's a lot of car noise. And that was one downside to the space. But the idea that there was networking that had already been set up. There were a lot of amenities that had already been built. Air conditioning in every room, big, metal sturdy doors, and it just seemed above and beyond what we thought we were going to be able to afford and what we thought would be available to us. And so we were excited about this space, but we were nervous that we weren't going to get it. We did put an offer in on another space before this, but we did not get it. And it's just kind of fun looking back on some of these rooms. You can see them completely bare, and I'll show you some more progress stuff later later in this episode, but I'm happy that I have these photos. It's always going to be fun to look back and remember what this space was like when we first saw it. And then there was the time for other allies to come in and check out this space. So in the time when you saw the last photographs up until now we actually have the space. And so I invited all of the other allies to come over. Some of the boys were busy, but Brad, Bloodworth, Damiani, and Huber visited and checked the space out. So some of these photos you have seen before that I posted, tried to crop out some of the stuff. Didn't want to reveal the brick, because we were excited about showing off the brick background for the streaming space. But I did happen to get video reactions of Brad, Bloodworth, Damiani, and Huber discovering the space for the very first time.
What do you think, Brad?
Super hyped, Jones. Wait till Huber sees this place.
Oh, yeah.
He's gonna scream.
Yeah, he's gonna lose his
He's
mind.
gonna test the soundproof,
We did. I told him to go in the green room and Hubert out for a while, and then I went to each studio and I was like, okay, so I can still hear you.
Yeah.
Bloodworth, you just saw the office for the first time. What are you going to do?
What am I gonna do? I'm gonna do whatever Ian tells me to do.
That's right. Very good. Your check's in the mail. Well, that's the other thing, not putting the computer behind the TVs so that we can
Yes.
just get at it.
Oh,
And the
yes.
camera, adjust the camera without having to...
What do you think, Damiani?
It's pretty good. It's good.
We'll start the
So,
tour over
give him
here.
a tour. Sick, that's it?
That's
That's
the place.
everything?
That's the place.
Is it all?
Isn't it enough?
It's way bigger than I thought it would be.
Yeah, it's huge.
Way bigger. I was expecting a room. In the room? I was expecting a room or two.
He
said 6 a while ago. There's so many rooms. There's so many rooms.
It's too many.
This is gonna be the actual Hall of Grace. Talking about
Yeah, literal Hall of Grace right here.
talking about busting holes in walls.
So after the boys checked it out, it was time to begin the move-in process. And of course, that involved a lot of taking stuff down from the garage, setting stuff up in the studio. There was lots of new equipment and new furniture and stuff that we bought. I actually spent a lot of my time in the moving process constructing the couches and cutting down boxes and just generally tidying up the place as Ian was working on the tech. And one fun moment was when he got the color lights in. Now, these are not the LED lights that you see strung up horizontally on the main stage. These are specific color lights that kind of fill in the background. So when you see not just the strips, but you actually see a little bit of color fill, especially in the spaces between those two strips on the back wall. That is Ian doing his magic. He picked out these lights and did tests with them beforehand. And so it was neat to not only see the technology in the control room and the computer that he had set up, and the fact that he was going to be controlling the studio space from that control desk and from that room. But it was neat to get a little sample early on before we actually built the set of what we were going to be able to do with colors.
What'd you do?
Makeshift, we got the lights to kind of work. Makeshift. Our real lighting stuff isn't here yet.
Is this the stage? Am I looking at the stage here?
No. This will be the control room.
And people look through that window over there?
Yeah.
Here, do the thing.
Oh, yeah, here. Let's go red.
Woo!
Woo! Blue and purple and red. Ah!
Cute. Cute.
Neat. I feel better.
And then finally, construction day. So a special thanks to Go Button Productions who came in and built both of our sets. We ended up saving a lot of money on the streaming stage. Over the holidays, over Christmas break, and through the new year, we were planning and budgeting out how much we were going to spend on each of these individual stages. I must confess, I'm not much of a design person, so I was really nervous, designing the set and trying to figure out what is our style. Every set that we've been on before, we had a say, back in the Game Trailers days, we had a say as to what that set was going to look like, but we weren't the primary people paying for it. We weren't the primary designers. We just kind of had to come in and give a thumbs up if we approved of something. And this was the first chance to really build something from the ground up. So I was incredibly nervous how it was going to look, and if we were really, making the most out of the budget that we had to put these things together. And so we decided to spend more money on the streaming stage because obviously we needed a lot of sound elimination, like I said, from the various sound sources that were going to be permeating this room, and some other fun ideas that we might get to eventually that we wanted to implement in the streaming stage. But I'm really happy with how that room came together. What they did provide us for the streaming stage were these risers, these big metal flats basically that allow us to raise the front couch and then the second couch higher than that, so we get a little bit of a stadium seating effect on the streaming stage. The rest of the streaming stage was put together by us, primarily by Ian. He put those wonderful video windows together. So thank you, GoButton, for those risers, but primarily, thank you for building this wonderful set. And it was really exciting not only to see this huge difference from this room, as you can see with the windows in the background, to putting in the soundproofing and building this wall, putting in the trusses, hanging up the lights. I know it might seem odd, the placement of the trusses, because I know it might seem strange kind of where the trusses are placed, but they're very strategically placed so that metal bars can hang overhead and that the lights can hang on those bars. And so, if this was something that we had like 2 or 3 more feet in that room, then that stuff you wouldn't see. That would be behind those walls and out of the way. But because of how much space we had, this was the best way to do it. And so we decided it might be fun to kind of incorporate these trusses, incorporate these big metal stands actually into the set itself. And, possibly this could evolve in the future as we want to budget maybe different ways that we can hang lights in there and maybe build out the room to possibly look different. But I'm excited about the way that came together. And on this construction day, we really just kind of sat around and watched GoButton do their thing. We planned for 2 days of construction, but they mostly finished in 1. They came on another day to do little touch-ups with the paint and a couple other things that they didn't necessarily finalize, or that when we really kind of looked, stood back and looked at the set, we realized there were a couple things that needed to be touched up. We actually also got, in the streaming stage, we got more risers that we ended up using. So you might see these in the future. We have the 2 that are in the front that the front couch is sitting on, but we have a whole nother riser and a lot of other sound material that is currently just sitting in the library. But we might, if we want to use the streaming space as kind of a more performance stage, maybe for some Twitch sings or maybe a rock band competition in the future, it'd be fun to utilize the fact that we have this risen stage that we can stand on. And but the main studio stage was quite a production, and just hats off to Matt Scarpino and the team for they were people that we always wanted to work with. It really made sense when I was talking with Nick Scarpino from Kinda Funny, and he suggested, well, if you're familiar with the live events and the sets and stuff that we put together at Kinda Funny, all of that was done by my brother, and I had met Matt previously at events, and Matt not only is a very driven person and leads a really great team, but a really nice guy, a really fun guy to be around, and it was nice. It's always neat when you meet people in the industry, to not only hang out with them and get advice from them and see the projects they're working on, but actually, pay them for wonderful work and to have them do something really exciting to come in and create a new visual identity for Easy Allies. And that was something that GoButton really seemed very passionate about, and they realized how important this was for us as a company, and they felt very honored to be a part of this very momentous week for us. And so it's exciting to show this to you now, but this is the work of many weeks and months of planning, coming together and trying to figure out actually what we wanted to build. And then while we were still shooting stuff in the garage, all of this construction was happening, and it really wasn't until all of this stuff got finished that we then, packed up all of our equipment here and moved that all into the studio. After the set was built, we did a little bit of construction from a different team, PCC General Contractors Incorporated. Thank you very much for coming in and knocking a bunch of holes in the walls in the EZA studio. The first and major hole was this window in between the control room and the main studio stage. And originally we had the idea that this was going to be up and to the left of the control room desk. And the control room desk had so much going on that it made more sense to kind of push that up against the wall. And when we built in the set, we realized, because it's kind of hard to figure out when you're in one room looking at the other room, if we put a window here, where is that going to be in the other room? So we would have one person stand in the other room and put their ear up against the wall, and we'd knock on the wall and to kind of say it might be here, I don't know. And we realized, okay, now that we've built the set, this window is not really going to be where we want it to be. We drew a space on the wall to show the owners of the building what we had in mind. But then when we actually, came time to construct it, we realized, oh, this is going to kind of be more of a vertical window, and it's going to be off to the left. And so while it's not something that Ian can see, anyone that's on the control room desk can see the stage because they have all the monitors set up and they can see it. But it's really nice just to have a window there because you can maybe pass signals to people that are on the set. You can come in and see what's being shot. You maybe listen in from there without actually having to enter the studio stage itself and kind of assess like how long the podcast is taking, or if we're starting a stream or something, we can just notify that group, or if Ian, whoever's on the control room, if they want to patch in and talk versus being quiet, they have options. And just in general, it's nice to have a view onto that stage, and I think that window looks really fancy, and so it was fun the way that came together. And obviously PCC also built these holes, kind of utility holes in the walls that run cables from the main stage to the control room and then all the way over to the streaming stage. And what we have currently set up is that the control room, which is kind of like the fourth office room, can see the streaming stage. But what we eventually want to do is functionality where the main stage can hear the streaming stage can hear the main stage, and the control room in the middle can go back and forth. And so we can set up big events, hopefully by E3 of this year, where we're able to access both stages while we're streaming in real time, and all of those spaces can hear each other. It's a lot of moving parts. It's something that we know is possible, but we wanted to make sure that the main stage was up and running for shoots, the streaming stage was up and running for streaming, and then of course we will add that functionality down the road. But like I said before, there was just a lot of standing around watching all of this stuff get built, and our hats off to these wonderful teams that came in and built these things, because they're very fancy and we're very lucky to have them. So here are a couple of panning shots that can give you a sense of what these rooms looked like when we first checked out the studio versus what they look like now. I need to get some final shots of some of these rooms. I forgot to do it the last time I was in the studio, and so I'll show you more of these as we move on. But here is the green room, the library, and the main studio, and I hope you can get a sense of how much work was done and how much these rooms have changed. Obviously, the office room is not going to be very exciting to see right now because there's still a bunch of garbage and cardboard boxes in there, but once that gets cleaned up, maybe we put some more art on the walls, get some more desks in there, maybe get a PC or a printer or something, and you can see, okay, that's what that room is primarily going to be used for. And as I said, I'm going to be having more of these options, primarily the streaming stage. I think would be really fun for you to get a sense of the improvements there. But for now, in this episode of Cup of Jones, enjoy these before and after shots like you're watching HGTV, like you're watching a home improvement show. Here's the beginning of that episode and the end of the episode. So in conclusion, I want you to check out some fun videos below if you missed them. I got a big list below in this post on patreon.com where it begins with an episode of Huber Syndrome where he says goodbye to the garage. And then obviously I didn't include any episodes of Cup of Jones that I've put on here where I talked about the studio. But anything else from Easy Update to a wonderful video put together by Sean Clinton, aka German Efficiency, who was there on our launch night and who is a family and friend of Easy Allies. And thanks so much to Sean for putting that together. It's nice to have just other perspectives. It was nice to have everybody sit down and do a bit of an interview, and nice to have another glimpse from somebody who's not completely caught up in the minutia in the day-to-day operations of putting together this crazy studio. But to let you know, other stuff that is coming down the line, we have a bunch of furniture we want to buy. I want to get some drawers for the green room to put plates and spoons and forks and knives away. We want to get some shelves in the bathroom so we can store cleaning supplies and toilet paper and paper towels. I want to get a TV stand for the stage. Right now, the TV that we use for reactions and Trailer Jones is just sitting on the floor. We want to elevate that a little bit, maybe have a little bit more storage where we can put cables and stuff like that. We haven't hung any of the pictures yet. A lot of people commented that the walls are bare. We have brought in all of the official art that we have had framed that was sitting up in the garage, and we're going to find perfect places to put that. And As I mentioned before, we want to add some more stuff to the background of the streaming set. We were possibly thinking of putting in a shelf up there. We could put some fun items that we've gotten over the years, maybe a lamp in the background, and so you might see that set evolve. And we might add elements to the actual main stage. Some of the allies suggested possibly bringing in some props, maybe some TV monitors, something in the background to liven that up. And what's fun is that we have so much space in the studio now that we can store these things in other rooms and bring them in only for specific sets and specific events. And so you will see the space evolve. This isn't, we are definitely not finished. I'm happy with where we were at the launch of this space, but there's lots of improvements to come. And I just want to thank, again, GoButton and PCC General Contractors for coming in and helping us with construction. I want to thank all of our lovely patrons for supporting us, for continuing to support us. We are still, on the verge of breaking records here on Patreon, and the outpouring of support and the kind words and the general love from everybody in our community, we're definitely feeling that as we moved in the studio. But more than anything, I want to thank Ian Hank. Ian has done a tremendous amount of work getting everything up and running. I've done work, but all the work I've done is rather simple. It was just, took time and effort to do. But Ian really had to solve a lot of mysteries and had to figure a lot of stuff out in order to create this studio that you see before you. So congrats, everybody. Tip their hats to Ian Hank for putting all this stuff together. That is a very bizarre, random, VO-driven episode of Cup of Jones. Again, leave questions if you want to know anything that I haven't told you or get more specifics. Again, if it's something that hasn't happened yet or if it's something that we want to surprise people with in the future, you might not get a straight answer, but I want to address any concerns or curiosities that you have about the studio, and any episode of Cup of Jones is a good place to do that. And hopefully, in the next episode, I will be up and streaming, and then hopefully in the episode after that, you will get a glimpse of what the garage is going to look like now and what my little desk and home streaming space is going to be in the future, because I will continue to stream and continue to produce shows here in the garage. Obviously, the studio is the focus now. So again, thanks to Ian and all of you. I love you all. I'm so happy with the studio space we have now. I can't wait to shoot more stuff in it, and I'll see you next episode.